Kerala when it first got accredited by NAC with A grade in 2015. Sir has assisted 4 universities in pre-NAC accreditation process and acted as an academic auditor for Mahatma Gandhi University. Sir was the former secretary of All India Accounting Associations, and now Sir is serving as a chief editor of Indian Accounting Association. Sir has a total teaching experience of 30 years, serving as a professor since 2010, and Sir has a total PG teaching experience of 24 years, and Sir has taught many subjects like MBA, MCOM, PGD, HRM, MHRM, etc. Simon sir is an approved research grade of University of Kerala, both in Faculty of Commerce and in the field of management. And he was the member of NBFC's engaged in policy reforms for the State Planning Board. Then Sir is a member of member of All India Accounting Association, All India Management Association, and Kerala Management Association. Then governing body of Center for Development Studies. And we all know Sir has performed many roles in his career, and there are a lot to say about his contribution to the area of commerce and management. So, being a student of Sir, it's my privilege to get this opportunity to speaking about him. So, sir, welcome, sir. Once again, welcome for this session, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vishnu. A very good evening to one and all. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Vinod AS, who's coordinating this particular program, Dr. Dilip, the respected principal, Dr. Ambli, other dignitaries, keynote speakers, invited speakers, delegates, and so on. I'm rather happy to be part of this particular seminar on the occasion of this 10-day event. And sorry, just a minute.
Okay, sir.
Sorry. I'm happy to be part of this program, and it's a 10-day event. So congratulations at the outset for MG College. And what makes me more happy is that this is an event which is jointly organized by MG College Department of Commerce in association with the Indian Accounting Association, of which I'm also a part. Now, the whole 10-day program is about research, and I'm setting the ball rolling with a keynote address on approaches to research. And all of you perhaps would wonder, what is so great, or what is so unique, or what is so distinct about approaching research? Because we all have been doing research, we have been talking about research, we have been guiding research. So what is so great about the approaches to research that we need to look into? Now, why I'm talking about this, or what I would like to convey maybe in another 30 minutes, is simply the fact that research as it is today, we are facing several challenges. And one of the unique challenges that research today encounters essentially comes from the fact that research is somehow down the line turning out to be something which is not integrated, which is being viewed in a segmented form. Now, what I mean by this is very simple. Today, for research, as far as some are concerned, research is just use of software. For some, it is a mere degree. For some, it is just test of hypothesis. For some, it is a means to get into a educational institution, higher education institution. For some, it is a means to get your promotion clear. So it is seen in parts, it is seen in segments. Now, when we talk about approaches to research, which I think should be at the heart or at the root or at the core of all those who are attending this, the key issue is, if you need to approach research, we need to approach it with a sense of purpose. Why are we actually doing research? What is the basic objective behind research? So is it in fact to generate or create new knowledge? Or is it just to meet certain deadlines so as to gain a particular degree? So why are we actually doing this? If that is clear, then obviously you will have with you a research issue. And once you have a research issue, you are on the path of seeking the right data through a questionnaire or a schedule or whatever. You are in the path of formulating a right hypothesis. You are in the path of doing a right review of literature in order to identify the research gap. You will do your processes in such a form that you will have with you some basic findings. Now, what I'm trying to say here is, I don't mean to say that we need not look into our promotion or our career or the development path and all. It's all fine. But when we look at this, when we look at it, let us not try to somehow, somewhere down the line, create a shortcuts to all these things. Now, that is where we need to approach research in that particular form. And I'm happy that the Department of Commerce of MG College are discussing all these issues. But when you look at all these issues, each session might be distinct. Say, for instance, you have a session on questionnaire. You would have one on formulating hypothesis. You would be having one on software. But try to look at how you integrate all these things. Because at the end of the day, what is the most important is, what do you infer? What do you interpret? What do you conclude? And all other things are the means to an end. You might have a lot of data, but data is a raw material. It's not a finished product. You might have had a lot of tests with you. These are all tools to establish something. And let us try and see, what are we actually establishing? What are we trying to infer? What are we trying to conclude from that? So if this process gets lost, then we are quite happy with the tons of data that we have gathered, the large number of hypotheses which we have formulated, at times not even understanding why we actually have done that, the huge number of tests which we have put in, and the efforts that we have done in order to say that there is a significant difference or there is no significant difference between variables. So this is what we actually need to look into. What is the final product? What is the final conclusion? What is the final inference that you're trying to bring from it? And this inference, in fact, starts from the fundamental issue which is standing out as the research problem. So what I'm trying to put here is just two or three things. One is your research problem. How do you approach that problem, which is coming up for a detailed session for you, and how actually you relate, you integrate between objectives and findings, and how this is actually going to be meaningful. Now, let me start from the research problem or the research issue, because this is the genesis of research. This is the core and heart around which you formulate your title, you create all your processes around that. So does this research issue comprehend and appeal to you in such a way that it gets reflected in terms of a sound title? That is the key. Now, at a point of time, when we look at the approaches to research, the concerns that spring out is just that I need to get into I need to have a degree and I need to have a registration, for which I need to somehow get a topic on which I need to register. At the first stage, when you're talking about the problem, understand that the industry has got lots and lots of issues which are live, which are relevant, which are contemporary, which they would love to be studied, which they are passionate in terms of getting resolutions. The industry have got lots and lots of issues. The policymakers have lots and lots of issues, whether it is in banking, whether it is in insurance, whether it is in marketing. The micro enterprises, the manufacturing sector have got lots and lots of issues which they would rather love to be studied. But the problem here is when these issues are there on one side, with the industry, with the policymakers, with the manufacturing service sector institutions, researchers, how much do we link with that? How deep do we understand that? How much do we contemplate to rather relate to the same? When this is not there, what happens is, this is what I was referring to at the beginning in approaches to research, the integration that takes place, that will stand apart. That means the issues which the industry has, the policymakers have, the manufacturing, the service sector faces, that will stand apart. And on the other side, we want a research topic for which we design something and we say it is a problem and we start working on it. So we need to keep the basic, what you call talent, which we need to actually inculcate in our research process, is to keep your ears and minds open. Keep your ears and minds open to all that is happening in the society, all that is happening in the industry, all the realities that are taking place. And from there should come out. From there, the seeds of research should actually be sown. So the problem actually comes out there. Now here we have lots and lots of issues. Being the THATTIL committee chairman, we see lots of such issues. And I see this happening across the country. We just jump into a title, a hurried rush into a title, something which is fancied, something which you believe, let us start off with, something which has got at the end, something which is already done, something which is repetitive. We just go on that form. So we need to approach research, the starting point of research. In fact, I would say, I've mentioned this on several occasions, even in the past, we need to train our scholars, our guides, and even each one of us, including me, we need to be trained on how we actually link up with research issues. We give a lot of training on how to write a research paper. We give a lot of training on how to do your SPSS. We do a lot of training on how to analyze data. But do you actually train your scholars? Do we train our researchers on how open they are to the realities, to the problems? Because once they understand that, they can pick up that for research. And having picked up the right issue, you come into a right environment or a right setting for research. This is a basic element on which we need to actually ponder. And I would not just say ponder, I would put ponder within quotes. I would say ponder in depth the problem. And don't just put it in terms of a problem without understanding how deep, how strong, what is the gravity, what is the magnitude of this problem, and how much it has got a relationship with a sector. So when you just, in fact, when something is said about a researchable issue, the dimensions of that will unfold, or it gets elicited in terms of its impact. So this is the key thing that we need to keep in mind when we are talking about good research. Second thing that I would like to talk about is the findings. How are we actually reporting our findings? How are we actually reporting our findings? Once you have the problem with you, clear with you, then you have your objective set. 1, 2. Don't make it very large in number, but make it very specific and focused with perhaps a primary objective and maybe a couple or 2 or 3 secondary objectives which are aligned with the primary objective. And once that is done, all your work is directed towards, is moving towards attainment of those objectives. And what you do for that are the intervening steps. They are not the concluding steps. They are processes. See, in everything that we do, there are processes and there are outcomes. So we are at times only bothered about reporting the outcomes or just talking about the processes. These two things are integrated. So in each of this, to meet this, you might have collected some data. You might have you have your own hypothesis. But unfortunately, what I'm finding today is that once you look at the presentation or read through the theses, you see the findings coming in terms of the test results. This is where I'm saying we somehow find that the software outcomes have invaded into the attainment of the objectives. The software, suppose I want to test the relationship between two variables. I'll give a very simple example. I want to test the relationship between two variables. If I use SPSS, I might find that there is a significant relationship between two variables. Now, is this a finding? Or is this something which leads to a finding? Unfortunately, in many theses, we find this turning out to be a finding. At certain levels of there is a significant difference between male and female. There is no significant difference between public sector, private sector, or between the northern region or southern region, or between the manufacturing sector. It's all talking about difference. No significant difference. There is a significant difference. Now, these things are, in fact, suppose you say that there is a significant difference between two variables. Now, it means that the two variables are not the same. There is a strong association between two variables. So these are things which require further pondering. If there is no relationship, why? If there is a relationship, why? And what are you trying to infer from that? Research always keeps asking a question, so what? You're saying that the p-value is this much and then it is significant. So what? What is it trying to imply? So this implication part, when it does not come, you're just saying, I can use data and say that ratios are this much, or the trends indicate that they move upward. What I'm trying to, reinforce here is the fact that these are all tools. You must use it. There's nothing wrong. But even when you use it, they are inclined to tell you something else which lies beyond. Are you digging into that beyond? Or are you just giving the result? I can analyze the results of students in a university. I can put it in different packages, and I'm saying the mean mark is this. The association between the marks of girls and boys are like this. The association between the marks in the past and present is like this. But ultimately, what do you want to conclude? To conclude, I must find what is the academic caliber and strength of these students, and how do you improve that? What should be done for that? This is where I'm talking. Another important issue that you see there when you're projecting the findings, how to approach research. You have your objective set. You find this, all these things, if you visit different libraries, you can see. Objectives would be to identify factors on something, or to identify problems or the reasons or the satisfaction, these so on and so forth. And your findings are saying there is no significant difference in the problems identified. Your objective was to find out the problems which are important in a sector. And the finding is there is no significant difference in the problems. If your findings is there is no significant difference in the problem, then the objective would have been to find out whether there's a significant difference in the problem. If your objective is to find out the problem, then the finding should be what are the important problems? Which is the most important problem? And why do these two problems vary in sectors or between different groups? So what I'm trying to bring across here is too much of dependence. We need data, we need tools, we need analysis, but that is for, if I use a calculator, the calculator will tell me that 2 plus 2 is 4. But why did you do this 2 plus 2? And you should decide, you should look for yourself, you should find yourself. A might have done the addition for some purpose, B might have done it for some other purpose. So the software or the package that you use, you give it an input, it will give you an output. the use of that output to influence. Because that is why you typically, if you look at the analysis, you will see that the outcomes, the outputs which comes from the package is given lots of emphasis, and the inference and conclusions that you draw from that is given very little emphasis. The why part of it, the so what part of it, or what are you trying to judge from this? Our skills need to move into inferring. Our skills need to move into interpreting. And that is analysis, further analysis. For that, perhaps I can even talk about different variables and results, but unless I logically link between them, unless I logically read the same, they don't stand to convey much movement. So when we approach research, we need to keep this in mind. Are you working on a live, relevant issue, the problem? Because if that is not there, then your tool might not be right. Your sampling might not be right. Because you just say that I took a sample from 3 regions or 3 sectors without understanding what exactly is the population and where exactly the true samples lie. So, issue number 1, how are you actually framing your objectives and projecting your findings in tune with the objectives? My objective number 1 is to find out this. Have you found that out? And for that, whatever differences or associations you wanted to establish that and tell you why that has happened. Why that has happened. Why this particular phenomenon does prevail. When that comes, that is the beauty of your output. That is the beauty of your result. Because however short it is, however brief it is, you have shed something light. It need not be very large, but more important, it should be very, integrated in its form. Approaching research or approaches to research talks about forward integration and backward integration. What is this forward integration? As I said, you have a live issue which has resulted in a problem. That problem gets encompassed in terms of a title. From the title to the objectives. From the objectives, you have prepared the appropriate, you have hypothesized accordingly, and you have your own ways of doing the analysis. Again, further, the analysis gives some output. The output leads to some inference. Based on the inference, you have suggestions, forward integration. Backward, if you're suggesting something, it is based on a finding. Finding is based on an analytical tool applied and the result that has come from there. That is associated with the objective, and the objective is assigned with the title, backward integration. This is very much necessary. And again, how do we actually hypothesize? How do we actually formulate a hypothesis? Approaching this is very simple in terms of understanding what actually this means. What is the meaning of this very term? We normally say there's no significant difference based on gender, based on age, based on income, based on region, based on sector. Why are we saying this? Was there a presupposition that there should have been an association? Because when we say hypothesis, understand that it has come from a combination of 2 words. Hypothesis. Something which is hypo means less than. And thesis is established fact. Empirically tested, scientifically established. So it stands below that. And it stands below that when we have a hunch in terms of our observations, in terms of literature, in terms of certain, studied reports, that something is tentatively believed to be true. So it's not just writing something in that form, male, female difference, or a public sector, private sector difference. So this is something where we actually need to apply our mind, approach it in that particular form. So why I'm giving you this in a, linked form is because I understand that you are taking each of this separately, but don't see it as separate. Say, for example, when you're dealing with a session on questionnaire, This has got something to do with the design that you're adopting. Are you exploratory or descriptive? Accordingly, you can make it structured or unstructured. So if you do not have a design, then any type of questionnaire is fine. So if you discuss only the questionnaire without looking at the design, then you might, and then again, what kind of data that you're going to collect? That is again based on what are you trying to establish. Based on that, you collect data. Only meaningful, relevant material should be collected. We just go on collecting data, age, gender, marital status, number of members in the family, without knowing why are we actually doing all these things. Certain things might be relevant. I'm not saying everything is irrelevant, but how actually we are testing all these things. So what I'm trying to conclude from all this is approaching research with a very positive mindset, where there is a movement from data to information to knowledge, and perhaps even to wisdom. Stages, stage by stage movement. When I collect data, data should not remain in the form of data. The transformative model is very important. I collected data, then I'm processing it, then I'm putting it in the form of tables, the averages, the means. Then I have made it information. For what? Again, that must get transformed into knowledge. It becomes knowledge only on the basis of the inferential relevance which it has. Otherwise, it's just information. So suppose I'm saying there's no significant difference between male and female. That is just information. The mean for one particular factor, this was this factor at the highest mean. That's information. So there is a lot of information that you can get. And for getting information, perhaps maybe 30 years back when we did research, getting information also, converting the data to information also required a lot of manual processes. Today that becomes easy because I use softwares, I have my averages, I have my descriptive statistics, I have all the tools with me. But the result from that is not knowledge, it is only information. When you relate it to the problem and you draw logical inferences, then that becomes knowledge. It is just like, the classic example, which I've quoted even earlier, is like what happens in a clinic. A medical practitioner is in fact doing research. And it is a live research. A patient goes to a doctor and says, my stomach is aching. Only thing is the problem is very specific over there. The patient has informed the medical practitioner that his or her stomach is aching. Problem is given. Now, it is up to the medical practitioner as an expert to find out why the head is aching. Just like we do SPSS, he might call for different tests. He might say you take your BP, you take your blood sugar, you take your what all EEG, what all counts. Now, the results from that will give different values. So suppose the doctor says there is a significant difference in your pressure. So then that is information for you. Then you will say, sir, is it high or low? So one more step is saying, yeah, it is very high, now you can go. The normal is this, yours is this. Something like this is happening in many of our theses. We are saying there is a significant difference. Something is high, something is low. The mean is this. He might also say your results of the blood test is this is the normal count and this is that. Those are things information. From that information, he has to relate the case before him and identify what is actually causing this and give a right path of medication to resolve that issue. That is knowledge. How much of movement on that line does happen in our research? Or are we just giving the results in terms of information? I'm not generalizing. I'm saying that in many cases, it's somewhere down the line, we have got an impression that the information created, the results that we have done, the diagrammatic presentations that we have, the values that I have done, so substantial amount of work has been done. Fine, it is true. But does it move into knowledge? And if perhaps using these cases, the medical practitioner says I should see that this ailment itself, its prevalence of this ailment must come down, then that is one more step further where I'm saying that I'm actually moving into higher levels of wisdom. Just one minute. Okay, so this is in fact what we are actually talking about when we are trying to look at approaches to research. And I think this is a serious issue because understand that the complexity of higher education is fast changing. Complexity in the sense that when we had 30 years back, when I started my research, we used to have research only in university departments, and we used to have one or two full-time research scholars at a time. So it was not very difficult or complex for the supervising teacher and the systems that you have within the institution to monitor, to guide, to support the scholar in the process of knowledge creation, not in the process of information creation. But today numbers are very huge. So we need to take a very, what do you call it, a close look. A close look in the sense that it is not supervisory or regulatory. Beyond that, it is a self-regulated passion where instead of saying that 1,000 things were studied, I studied a few things. I studied a few things with good focus, with good purpose, with good meaning, and I have some, maybe one or two key findings and one or two key suggestions. As simple as that. When that approach is there, we find joy in what we have done. We in fact find joy in what we have created. I'm not saying that I have transformed the world, but I have something to say in terms of the issue which was so close to my mind, which was so close to my heart. That is what we actually are looking for when we actually talk about good research. This is the perspective, this is the dimension in which we need to look at our own self as a guide, as a scholar, because all of us are researchers. Even if you're a guide, maybe produced 20, 25, we are still scholars. So we learn a lot. And such, what do you call it, webinars like this, they are actually, we are trying to look at such issues. And it's a small thing, it's not a very big thing. Only thing is, we should internalize some of these processes. It's like, just like what as far as a doctor is concerned, he knows that he should be very genuine. He should be very focused, because otherwise this patient will not come back to him, and this patient need to recover. How much of recovery, how much of resolution, how much of shedding light, if not resolution or recovery, how much of shedding light in fact takes place in terms of the outcomes from research. This can happen even in small research projects like your MCOM or MPhil projects. And in a big way, it can happen. And there is lots and lots of demand for this. But unfortunately, let me tell you, the dependence on academic research is coming down. And this kind of a research, which I'm talking about, is happening in a big way in the industry by they are doing it through their own means. But if they find that academicians who are in the pursuit of knowledge can do it in terms of their path, in terms of their will, then they will very much use such academicians. We see this when we get projects on consultancy from the industry. So we used to tell them that we have some research scholars who work on that. So we don't mix that up there. This is what they want to say. We have specific objectives. We have specific purposes behind this. And we are not just going to say that you use all your tools. But the end, this is what we would like to know. Why something is happening. How something can be resolved. How some better challenges can be faced. How better opportunities can be tapped. So those kind of outcomes must come. Otherwise, it will be, yes, you produce tons and tons of pages and pages together, but it should be something which stands. Or else the whole process will get vitiated. So I hope all of you researchers will look into some of these issues. Don't try to, because if I depend on a statistician alone, the statistician's duty is to tell you how to process and get a tool done alone. The integration must be the work of the totality or the people who do it together. That process must happen. So I wish you the whole program all the success. In fact, last year a similar program was done in the Department of Commerce of University of Kerala. We called it Shaping Focused Research, with definite questions on each issue: how to identify the problem, how to formulate a hypothesis, so on. So this is more or less in tune with that. So I would be rather, happy to see the outcome from this. I wish you all the very, very best in your pursuits. And I hope even for those who have completed their research work, who are guides, they can take up number of projects. If you do such projects will just flow into your departments, flow into your research agencies from different sectors in the industry, and from different, because in the introductory part, Vishnu was referring to NBFCs, which we did for the State Planning Board, the Niti Aayog, State Planning Board, SEBI, RBI, NBFCs, Ministry for MSME. They all have projects live with them. So if you are going to do this with this approach, then it will just flow to you. So take advantage of the huge opportunity which is in waiting for you, and do your level best in terms of good research. Wish you all the very best. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, dear sir, for your excellent session and having a discussion with the various elements of research and how we can do an effective research in a systematic and proper manner. So on behalf of all of our department, we are all very thankful to you, sir, be the part of our program and deliver an excellent session. So this is the time to have an interaction. Those who want to ask some doubts or regarding any areas of research, it's a time for you. Sir is there. If you have any doubts regarding any topics, regarding initial stage or during the time of doing the research, you can just have an interaction with sir. It's over to participants. There will be 5-minute discussion part.